G'day, everybody, and welcome to another Mark Bishop show. Thank you for the letters. Thank you for the emails. I appreciate that. I've got a beauty lined up for you today. The Mark Bishop show is like a box of chocolates. You never know who you're going to get. I know I'm stealing it, but look, that's what it is because it's so diverse. And as with today, my very special guest you're going to find out about, he is a gentleman that's spent over 40 years in government and private investigations. He's considered one of the top investigators in the world today, if not the best. And he has been profiled in a BBC documentary, 5 books about him, Newsweek magazine, which is on my site, and I'll tell you about that later, the cover of American Way magazine, Crime Watch Daily, Dateline, and dozens of other publications, TV shows around the globe. And I'm referring to this particular gentleman by the name of Mr. Clarke. And his name is Logan Clarke. Welcome, Logan.
Hey, welcome, Mark. How you doing?
All right. Just a few technical issues.
Thank you for inviting me on. Thank you for inviting me on the show.
Oh, mate, I'm excited. It's great to have you because that's what I'm trying to do with the show. I'm trying to get very interesting and informative people with great stories to tell. And by gee, you've got a story to tell, mate, I tell you. Private investigator, your team has investigated over 20,000 cases. From murder to the Mann Act, you've rescued over 350 kidnapped and runaway victims from around the world, many of whom were forced into human trafficking, which has become really bad, not only in Asia, Africa, the Middle East, and Europe, but right here in the United States. And we're not proud for that. And I might add, in towns that, they're as American as apple pie. And here we are, we've got all this stuff. Logan, just how bad is human trafficking really in the U.S.?
Wow. It's $150 billion a year industry. In the United States, I don't know how much of that is broken up, probably 30 billion in the United States. 100 to 150,000 women get pulled into human trafficking in the United States each year. 150,000. And the average age is 13.
Well,
yeah, runaways. It's unbelievable.
I was going to say to you, where do they, 150,000, where do they come from? Where,
well, okay, first of all, you gotta realize that every year between 800,000 and 1 million children disappear from their home. Okay, every year. So say 1 million kids, disappear from home. Now, 85%, as much as sometimes 87, 88% of those are found right away. They come home right away. They literally were over at somebody's house or, just crazy stuff that happens. But it happens every year. Now, if you say 100,000, right? Or excuse me, there's 800,000 to 1 million. So if you say 1 million kids, even if 87%, even if 90% are found and come home within the first week, 2 weeks, okay? That means that 100,000 kids, 10% of that million, does not come back home right away and are either kidnapped or runaways. There are hundreds of thousands of runaways, and runaways and throwaways are the prime target. That's the easiest place that the human traffickers can find people because nobody's looking for them.
Right.
They grab the girls off the street. A runaway is in just as much danger running away as if someone had kidnapped her.
You're the pioneer in fighting elder abuse and parental kidnapping, where the laws are treated as grey at the best and law enforcement apparently rarely steps in the cases. In fact, your 2014 case for the family of legendary DJ Casey Kasem, he's been covered in the press around the world, and they even brought you in as an expert consultant on shows like 60 Minutes, 48 Hours, 2020, KABC Radio, many others. Give us the skinny, if you wouldn't mind, Logan, on that particular case, Casey Kasem.
Casey Kasem he was a legend, of course, as a
Yes.
DJ, and he was the voice of one of the main characters on Scooby-Doo. And he had about an $82 million fortune built up. And he was married to this blonde Jean Kasem. And then he started to get, they thought Alzheimer's and then dementia. And he was in a hospice in Santa Monica for about a year. He had been moved around to different ones. And every time the kids would find out that he was in one, they would go and visit him. Jean never liked that. She hated for the kids to visit him. So she literally kidnapped Casey from one of the hospices in Santa Monica at 2:00 in the morning. She went in and she told him she was taking Casey out. And they said, you can't do that. He's hooked up to a feeding machine and, he'll die. And she said, okay, I'll take the feeding machine also. And she literally kidnapped Casey and the feeding machine, put it in an SUV. She and her daughter got in another SUV, and they took off on a road trip. He wasn't dying fast enough for her to be able to take over the $82 million fortune, and she wanted it.
Money
She
again.
took him on this escapade road trip to Las Vegas, where she put him in a suite in a hotel, right? And then she got a suite, and her and her daughter went gambling for 3 days, left her in the suite. And on the way, the feeding machine broke. Or ran out of food. At first, it ran out of food. They're on the way to Las Vegas, and it runs out of food. So they stopped at a CVS store, and they bought Ensure. They bought Ensure, and they poured the Ensure into the feeding machine.
Right.
And then it broke the machine.
Right.
So it's just one, but it went on for 2 years. I mean, literally, I found her in Seattle, and we had to get all kinds of court papers, from from California to Seattle to get him back. Yeah. If you go on YouTube and put Gene Kasem and Casey Kasem in it, or it'll show you on YouTube when we found him and we're taking him out of this house. She went in and grabbed a bunch of raw hamburger, and threw it and threw it at everybody, Casey included, and said, "I throw meat to the dogs." She was whacked.
Lovely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just what you knew.
Yeah, it went on for 2.5 years.
Unbelievable. It was a big case, wasn't it?
While he was alive, and then when he was dead, she stole the body again. Yeah, it was. Yeah.
What people do is absolute. Look, according to a 4-year international study by the BBC and Grafton Books, in fact, and they produce 4 one-hour documentaries and a hardcover book called Watching the Detectives. You, Logan Clarke, are one of the top 5 investigators in the world today. Do you agree with that?
When the book was written in the 90s, they did, evidently, according to them, they did this 4-year study, went around the world, interviewed private eyes all over the world, and the book starts with Sherlock Holmes, literally, and goes all through the private investigation, then goes through the
Started with Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
and they talk about Eugene Vidocq. Eugene Vidocq was he was the first private detective in the world. And he was in France. And there's a Vidocq Society, literally. And it's like the Sherlock Holmes, the fans that they have of Sherlock Holmes. Well, Eugene Vidocq has that same thing. He would sword fight in the streets in France in the 15th century.
Oh my God.
He would have these sword fights and everything. And then he was a presidential bodyguard, and he became a private gendarme. They called him a private gendarme.
No.
And that was the birth of the private detective. And then Pinkerton came along.
Of course, the British
Yeah.
ones, yes.
It
Yes.
goes through that whole thing. And they then interviewed a whole bunch of private eyes, and they called back 5 of us and said, you guys are the top 5 in the world. So it was it was an honor. It was quite humbling.
I was going to say I better show who I'm talking to here a little bit. It was quite humbling at that time. I mean, look at the
Yeah.
names you're associated with, even. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? That's
Yeah.
not too bad. But then again, you've
One
learned it.
newspaper. Yeah. Hey, go ahead.
You've learned it. As an undercover agent, in fact, Logan, you've infiltrated. I'm surprised you're still alive, to be honest with you. But you've infiltrated organized
For a
crime
lot of
groups, motorcycle gangs, Fortune 500 companies, and you've even gotten yourself hired. And this one's a screamer: hired to kill your own client.
Yeah.
Now you train and direct major undercover operations around the world, right? For numerous agencies, and I might add, including the governments of the Philippines, the USA, UAE, Sweden, and Germany as well. Tell us a little bit about that.
Um, I went undercover when I was 19 years old. I'd gone to a private detective school. I was a newspaper reporter, and I thought I wanted to be an investigative reporter, and I was a columnist, and they wouldn't let me. And so I saw an ad for a private detective agency, and I thought, oh, that'll make me a better, investigative reporter. So I went to the agency, 6 months. I graduated at the top of the class. And then I went home, continuing my newspaper career. And they called me. The owner of the school called me up, and he said, come back to the office. I want you to meet somebody. And the president of Chrysler, the chief of police, they were all there. And he said, we want to give you a criminal background and put you undercover in Chrysler Motor Corporation. There's $500,000 a year being stolen, embezzled out of Chrysler. Now, this is in 1969.
Right.
$500,000 was
it's a lot of bickies. Yeah, I understand.
Yeah. And I went undercover and wound up. I was under for months and wound up busting the ring. It went all the way up to the accountant, and I was hooked. I was just. I went, wow, I'm a thrill slut. I absolutely loved it. So I became an expert. I just worked years and years in it. And one day, Sylvester Stallone's bodyguard came to me and said that he had someone that was a friend of Sly's that he wanted me to meet. And this guy was one of the richest men in a state along the Mississippi. And, I can say it was Dubuque, Iowa. And it was the exact same time that they were filming Field of Dreams, the movie Field of Dreams with Kevin Costner, James Earl Jones.
The baseball, that was a good movie.
Yeah. God, what's his name?
Guy only passed a few. What was his name? I know who you mean, but
Ray Liotta. Yeah, Ray Liotta was in it.
Yeah, God rest his soul.
Anyway, I happened to be friends with the guy that was playing the pitcher, Steve Easton. And we went to acting school together, and I was a professional actor in the 70s and 80s. And I knew him, so I set up this guy told me, he said, look, I'm divorced. I have a daughter, and my ex-wife has gotten remarried. And the guy she remarried, I've gotten word that he's planning on putting out a contract on my life, because once I die, the child inherits all the money. And parents then control the money. Right. So this new dad would be in charge of the second richest, third richest man in God knows how many states. Mm-hmm. And so I thought about it, and I told him, okay, I'll go and get myself hired as a hitman, kill you. And he kind of laughed, and he listened to me, and I told him how I was going to do it. And I came up with a fake motion picture. I had a fake movie company because I was working in Hollywood for a lot of the stars. And I got a fake movie company. I went there with a whole perfect backup from the studios and everything. And I went there, and Field of Dreams was the biggest thing to ever hit Dubuque, Iowa. It was just monsters, all these stars, and they're shooting this movie there. So I went there, and I unannounced and went on the set of Field of Dreams, and I got pictures with my daughter, with all the stars, everything, said hello to everybody, got to know them, and then I left, got those pictures framed, and got the penthouse on the Mississippi River of this old hotel. And I came in as a producer of another movie, and I had a screenplay and everything. And so I went down in the bar. I knew everybody hung out at this hotel. I went down at the bar and I started drinking, talking about the movie I'm bringing into town. And I knew that in 2 or 3 days, the newspaper reporter would show up. And he started talking to me, and I told him all about this movie, which could be checked. They could call the studios. It was backed up. The studios knew who I was. It was all backed up. And so 3 days later, it was on the front page of the Dubuque, Iowa News. So my cover was cemented in the newspaper on the cover of the first page. So no one even questioned who I was. They all
couldn't ask anymore, could you? Right.
Yeah. And then it took months, but I went about meeting this guy and getting him, and all of a sudden my backers for the movie were from Chicago. And they were, I intimated that they was a mob.
Oh, yes.
So if you're become new friends with me, and if you want to hire a hitman and you don't know who to hire, somebody from Chicago, the mob is going to be who you're going to ask.
Right.
So but when it came down to it, I mean, he talked about it and everything. When it actually came down to doing it and giving me the money to actually go kill him, he couldn't do it.
There you go.
He couldn't follow through. So I literally saved him from going to jail, because he could have hired somebody that would have talked him into doing it just so that they get the money. Right. And he didn't find out for years when they went to a divorce court and everything. But it saved his life and also reassured my client, this guy's not really going to do this.
Most unusual story.
Yeah.
You got a lot
how to do undercover. It's the backstory that's important. You got to have a perfect backstory.
Yeah, right on. Well, I got a lot to get through with you. I think you could be an all-day type interview. You know what I mean? The stories you could tell. I'd sooner have a nice campfire, though, and sit around that at night. Hey, you're now focused, though. Let's get serious here, because this is what's important. Child kidnappings. You've become an absolute expert in this. I mean, the rescue from deep inland Mexico of the James boys. They were kidnapped from Austin, Texas. Was covered by KXAN, NBC News in Austin for 6 months. And the story was awarded the prestigious Edward R. Morrow Award back in 2013. Refresh our memories on that one, if you would, Logan.
The James boys had been kidnapped for about 8 months, and the FBI, the father was trying everything. The laws are so screwed up in parental kidnapping. It's unbelievable. And it happens a couple 100,000 times a year. One parent kidnaps the child from the other because they're not happy with the custody, or they're afraid that they're going to get the raw end of the deal in the custody. So rather than waiting for it or trying to go to court to change it, they just kidnap their own kid. And she was from Mexico. The wife was from Mexico, and she kidnapped her. And the FBI actually told Stephen James that you're just going to have to get used to the fact that you'll never see your children again.
Oh, lovely. Yeah.
That's what, and he just broke down. And he went all over the internet. He found some videos on me and hired me. And it was extremely difficult. She was deep in Mexico. I had Navy SEALs go up by water, check the town out. It was they said it'll be a bloodbath if we go.
You sound like you're on an operation in a SEAL 6 team or something. You know what I mean?
Well, we time them like a bank robbery. I mean, we've done hundreds of them, and the laws are just so messed up. I
Right.
started doing it in the 70s.
Well, are they
When
any
you
better?
there were no laws then. It was Wild West. If you
Yeah.
went and I did a kidnapping in Arizona. This guy had Winchester rifles on his car. If he'd have shot me, he'd have gotten away with it. He'd have said,
Right.
"I didn't know who this guy was. He was just kidnapping my kid." Because
Right.
we would
Right.
just go and kidnap the kids back because the law just didn't do anything. Whoever
And what about
possessed
now? What about now?
now
It's improved.
it got better in the 80s and 90s, and
Right.
now it's fallen back to nobody does anything. Rarely.
I,
I fight with the courts all the time,
it amazes
and
me.
yeah, it's and when we get close to finding them, um, especially women, when the women, most of my clients are men. It happens
Mm.
more often by women who kidnap their kids. I'd say probably 65, 70% are women. And they
Interesting.
do what I call a Hail Mary. When I get close to catching them, or the law is getting close to them, they all of a sudden say, look, the real reason that I kidnapped my children is because the father was molesting them.
Yeah.
The father
Right.
was abusing me and beating me up.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the minute they say that, an investigation starts. They put up temporary restraining orders against the dad. They don't know that it's true at all.
Of course.
When I get hired by the husband, the first thing I do is check him out. I get my retainer fee, and the first thing I spend money on is checking out the father or the
Right.
mother and making
So you
sure.
know what you're playing with, right?
Yeah, make sure that the police have not been called to your house 10 times, that you
Mm-hmm.
got arrested twice for abusing her. I make sure that they're perfectly clean. So all of a sudden, when we're catching the woman kidnapping,
Mm-hmm.
she comes up with all these stories, but there's nothing. There's no neighbors. She never told any friends. There was no
Right.
police report, no pictures with bruises. That's why I call it a Hail Mary.
Okay.
That's why I kidnap my children. And it happens, I don't know, 150,000 times a year.
You're
And
right.
if you're married to a foreigner, it's easy for them to get out of the country and get to that foreign
Yeah.
country. And then
I've seen a couple of movies based on that, but it wasn't the women; it was the husbands that took the
yeah.
kids.
And the husband, yeah.
In fact, the Middle East. One of the most I read about here was the most challenging child rescue extractions that you did do of your career was the child rescue out of Khartoum in Sudan. Is that right?
Yep. In the middle of the desert.
And locating and returning a 4-year-old German girl to her mother in Germany. Imagine that mother. She must have been absolutely hysterical.
Yeah.
I hope you're enjoying the show. I'm chatting with Logan Clarke. He's the director of Global Pursuit Investigations. And you might be writing this down in case you need some service. Logan, as an undercover agent, you've infiltrated organized crime groups, as I said, motorcycle gangs. You've done the works, but you're also a former governor of the California Association of Licensed Investigators. That's the largest such association in the world, if anybody didn't know that. And you're also a member of the World Association of Detectives and the co-founder of the International Human Trafficking Task Force. And you were awarded the International Investigator of the Year in Dublin, Ireland. Well, gosh, we got it. This is back in 97, correct? Congratulations for that.
Yeah.
Come on, you've got to share that one. My son's in Ireland at the moment, as a matter of fact.
Oh, really? Oh, I love Ireland.
I love him. Having a bit of a trip. He worked so hard. I'm proud of him. Tell me, come on, how did this come about? How did you wrangle this one?
I probably just because I did so many international cases. My mom was a jazz singer, and we traveled around the world my whole life. I went to 22 schools from kindergarten to 12th grade, 22 different schools in different states, countries, all over the place. And so I knew people all over the world. When I got into this, I had already been traveling so much doing USO during the Vietnam War. And I had contacts all over the world. So I took, back in the 80s and 90s, you didn't have computers. And you had these associations, but you got together 4 times a year and you knew these guys. I had to get on an airplane and go there. I had to actually go to these foreign countries each time and put together the team and lead them and around the world and do these rescues, find the kids,
How do you
locate them.
how do you find when you say, recruit a team? I mean, it's not like the movies, they got the certain dudes, they just open up the book and assets, as they call them, that they've used for years. Yeah, but here's you. Do you know them before you go, and they're just waiting for extra jobs again?
Yeah.
Okay, so you tap them and say,
that we have a list of them, and we have an A team and a B team. I work with different teams all over the world, and we will loan our guys to one team or another. We used to loan guys to Blackwater. I used to, if I needed guys that spoke a certain language and had certain qualifications, or girls, we'll call another team up, and if they have somebody, they'll let us use them, and we pay them. And put the teams together all over the world. And then we go. We already know usually where they are by the time I hit the country. We pretty much know where they are, and we've got a plan laid out. We lay it out like a bank robbery.
I was going to say, you don't just walk up to the front door and,
no,
excuse me.
It's timed like a bank robbery. Everybody has a pattern. We steal their trash for a month, 2 months.
Really?
Yeah. I find out everything they do, when they go to the supermarket, when you go, to different, everybody goes to the supermarket on the same day. They go to the same supermarket.
Right.
I can plant an undercover agent in that supermarket that shops there every day, Sunday, just like you do. Right. And literally bump into your shopping cart. And, I will arrange so that you choose the person to say hello to.
Right.
And you have to know their entire pattern, what they do every day. Do they go to school?
Right.
Do they not? Do they walk to school? Are they driven to school?
I guess it's not just the kids. It'd be the father or the mother on the lookout, wouldn't it? Right.
Are they working? Is there a time when there's a babysitter involved? Right. Or does the kid go to grandma? In some cases, in the Middle East, the fathers would kidnap the kids from the mother and take the kid, drop the kid off at the uncle's house, and hardly ever see the kid again. They just wanted the woman not to have the kid. It's a greed thing. It's an ego thing. It's a revenge thing. It's just It's disgusting.
Out of all the thousands that happen, let's just take America, because you've got clients all over the world. But just in America alone, how many would there be gross total of kidnappings, parental kidnappings, either by the wife or by the husband? And secondly, how many get them overseas, or do they hide in America?
If the kidnapping parent is from another country, 90% of the time they will return to that country or a nearby country, and then sneak into the country where they're from. And that's why if you're married to a foreigner, and this is nothing against foreigners at all, my girlfriend is Filipina.
I understand. We know where you're getting at. We know what you're saying.
I'm not.
But no doubt, there's also a rule in these other countries where it'd be darn hard to get them back out again, or maybe the country.
There's no extradition. We actually have had to kidnap them from foreign countries
because of no extradition.
And until we get across the border, we're not safe until we get across the border. So now there's different international laws, the Hague Treaty. In the United States alone, it's between 130 and 150,000 every year. Parental kidnapping, 130 to 150,000 every single year.
So you get others that walk away from marriages and walk away from the responsibility of their children.
Yep.
And go on and live a single life and don't give a damn. And for that matter, don't even pay.
Yeah, exactly. Abandoned. Yeah. And those kids usually run away.
Mm-hmm. But then you get the others who love their children so much, they refuse to let the wife have them or the wife to have for the guy to have them.
Yep.
You know, it's sad.
If I can't have them, nobody can.
You're right. No one can. This is just like a movie. Fair income. In fact, your life story that's been turned into a feature film. In fact, I was rather impressed when I read this because I'm a little bit involved with the movie scene here in my city in Tucson, Arizona, because we were the backyard of Hollywood. You know that, don't you?
Right.
It was written by Oscar-nominated writers of The Fighter, right? And that starred Mark Wahlberg and Christian Bale.
Yeah.
And Patriots Day was another Mark Wahlberg job. I like his acting. I really do.
Yeah.
The Outpost, and just released in 24, Jerry Bruckheimer's The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare. And that was directed by Guy Ritchie. So, well, I, for one, would look forward to seeing Logan in a movie like this, or any idea of the release date when they're going to?
No, it's at Netflix right now. Sony Pictures had me under contract with Pierce Brosnan, for 4 years. 4 years, Sony Television. And they had 3 scripts written, and it never came about. It just never managed. And I found out that Brosnan's manager was actually involved in it not happening, because she didn't want him to go back to television. She wanted him to keep making movies.
Well, guess what? I just watched the last episode last night of a new thing with Brosnan, and it calls Mobland.
Right? Yes.
Of the first series, which they're doing these days. They're testing the market.
Yeah,
if you want more,
wonderful person, wonderful man. I wish it would have worked. And then I gave the rights to these writers. They had known me for years, and they write movies, true movies. And so I gave the rights to them, and it's now at Netflix, and Netflix is trying to get the deal, put the deal together now. Netflix television wants it as a series. Netflix movies wants it as a feature.
Oh, great.
So I don't know. They're kind of going back and forth. Hopefully they will
What's
get
the
it
matter
together.
with them? It's a great story. It's got fair facts in it. It has awakened people up to today. It's a very topical topic. Tell me something. You hear all sorts of stuff from people. I get friends in the force. I get friends in the border and all sorts of people. But here's the deal. You hear all these things, okay? You hear a lot of stuff. But you wonder what the real truth is, right? And kidnappings today, and what's it called? Trafficking,
yeah.
Supposedly has become the number one over drugs for the cartels.
Yep.
Is that right?
Yeah, I asked a drug dealer who had turned to human trafficking. It was in a foreign country. And when we caught him, I literally sat him down and was talking to him. He was a known drug dealer. And I asked him, I said, why? You used to be the biggest cocaine dealer in the industry in Southeast Asia. Why did you switch from drugs to women? And he looked at me and smiled as if it was a stupid question. He said, I can sell a pound of cocaine one time.
Right.
I can sell a woman 1,000 times.
Oh, disgusting, isn't it? So,
yeah. And that's why there's more money in it. And it's easier with the borders broken down. The minute the Europeans formed, they took down all the borders. They used to have to, if they grabbed some girl in Russia or Hong Kong, they had to go through a border check every single country. And that was extremely difficult to do. Okay. You had to have really high up connection. Now all the borders are taken down. They can drive from France to Russia to wherever they want to go to. And there's no border. There's no border stopping them all over Europe. And that increased it tremendously. My ex-partner, the woman who's really the queen of catching human trafficking, Dottie Laster, is unbelievable. And her and I used to go to Texas once a year and help train the Texas Rangers in human trafficking. But Dottie is, above all, she is In human
Right.
trafficking, she's as big as it gets. She's done the biggest rescue of people ever done. I think it was 800 or 900 girls
In one
that were
go.
rescued in one operation.
Wow, that's
Yeah,
amazing.
she's out of Texas. She's
And
just
how many
brilliant.
people know about her? How many people, you know?
I don't know. She's won awards. She's been to the White House. Dottie
Oh,
Lasker, yeah, is
what
her
a
name.
fascinating person. She'd be a great
She's
interview.
an incredible woman.
Well, listen, you know that
Incredible.
Newsweek, I mentioned it before. I've got this great video that Newsweek magazine did do. It's on the site. Folks, you can go to markbishopmedia.com and it's all on the site. Okay. You'll be able to see a lot of the stuff that they were covering with Logan. And this movie, in fact, one of them from the magazine stated this. I thought this was, quite funny, or whichever way you want to look at it. But they stated in an article that featuring him, he said, if Humphrey Bogart were alive today, he'd be playing Logan Clarke. I love it.
Probably one of the greatest compliments I've ever gotten.
Right. Okay.
He,
I just thought of something. Go
yeah.
on. Did you see the movies Taken with Liam Neeson?
Oh yeah, I know the director, Pierre Morel.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
I love
Pierre
that.
was going to direct a television series. Sony hired him and brought him in from France.
Yeah.
He's a wonderful guy. And
Right.
that movie, 90% of that movie was real. The only
Oh
thing
yeah.
the only thing
I was thinking he'd be the sort of director maybe he could talk to, because if he can
was
do
gonna
that and he knows your story, man, there's
Yep.
an automatic connection. You know what I mean?
Sony brought him from France to meet me. And we've met several times, but 90% of that movie is true, Taken. The only thing that's not real is Liam Neeson. No one man does that.
No one man can take
I
on a
have
whole.
teams. Yeah, no one man. We've rescued those girls out of the places just like that he did, where they're actually selling them, where you actually look through the glass and you see them and they're drugged up and they're in there. But I have a team of 3 Navy SEALs, 2 Rangers, right? And I mean, special ops guys, we go in as a team and we can take the place apart. But there's no one man I know of that can do all that shit.
So that scene in the one, for instance, where there was his daughter's, ex-wife's, his daughter, by the Russians. It was the Russian mob had him, I think.
Yep.
And they had this place, and they're all sitting there, all these guys with heaps of dough, with fat pigs, God knows what.
Yep.
And they're all sitting there, and she ended up drugged, as you say.
Yeah.
And she ended up with this, something out of the Middle East or something on his yacht. You know what I mean? Yeah. And he had to run like hell and get onto that boat. But I mean, to take on 6, 7, 8, 10 of these thugs, I mean, superhuman, right? It's a bit hard.
It takes a team. But with the right team, if I have 4 or 5 guys that are ex-Navy SEALs, ex-Rangers, we can take out 30 or 40 guys.
Wow. You've been obviously shot at numerous times?
Oh yeah.
And you've dodged. Have you never been hit?
No, I've been stabbed. I've been a couple times. I've been knocked out, locked in the trunk of a car, pushed over a cliff, drugged in the Philippines, drugged in New York. I was working on an occult case, satanic killing in New York, and got drugged by these guys that were involved in it in a bar. And luckily, I had told a bunch of college kids that I was there and who I was. And I said, if you ever see me walking out of someplace and I don't seem to be in control, I'm with some guys, come and get me. And these guys did. Just the luck of the draw. I'm so close. I have friends that I call even to this day, and when they answer the phone and they hear it's me, they go, Logan, God, I heard you got killed in Sudan. I heard you got killed. You're still alive?
Yeah. Right on. No, it's my twin. I'm surprised, though. I'm surprised with a man of your experience, right, and know-how and wherewithal, that you would allow these dudes to drug you at a bar.
I was in there trying to get clues. I was in there trying to get information.
I know, but man, you're sharp.
You got to go into the web. You got to go into the web. You don't catch
these guys. You can't look at it from the outside looking in.
Yeah, you don't get these guys by hanging out at the Hilton Hotel. You got to go
Listen,
get down the
numerous other
street.
documentaries have been made about you. Volumes of experience as a technical advisor for films and TV. Now, it's not just that you've been an actor; you've also done a lot of work with producers and directors.
Yeah,
In fact, the TV series Simon and Simon, I remember that one. You advised on that particular show for 3
yep,
years.
yep,
And you were under contract, weren't you, for several studios in the 80s, in fact,
yeah,
in Hollywood?
yep. I would the different shows that they were doing, that anything that had to do the 70s and 80s. They didn't like to talk about human trafficking. I came over here because I had lived in Southeast Asia. I knew what human trafficking was. And when I came
Right,
here and told people, even the news reporters, they said, nah, that only happens in third world countries. And,
you're right.
we tried to do a television show here in the 90s. Carrie Seelig, a great producer, she won Emmys. We tried to do a television series about
Right,
human trafficking with Dottie Laster, the woman I'm talking about. And we started putting the show together, and the network said to us, literally in the 90s, they said,
right.
but this is really depressing. Who wants to see this?
Yeah, it
What?
doesn't
No
sell very well.
studio. Yeah, no channel is going to air this. It's just too depressing. And we
Well,
said, that's why you got to put it on television.
that's
You
right.
got to let people know.
No.
Now there's shows all over the network
Oh,
about
yeah.
it,
Oh,
because
yeah.
now people will talk about it. But before, no.
Yep. Well, people don't understand. See, with the border factor, back
Yeah.
east, unless you live on a border, you got no idea what's coming in,
Oh, yeah.
what is happening, and it'd blow your brains if you knew
Yeah.
the facts.
But most
Uh,
human trafficking doesn't come across the border. It comes across the border. But just like drugs,
mhm.
drugs rarely come across the border. There's backpackers that'll bring them, and there's some human trafficking. Most of the people coming across the border just want to get here.
Oh,
But
yeah, yeah.
the
But there
main
are. There's
drugs
still
and human
kidnapping out of Mexico.
trafficking is done in ships, in cargo trucks.
Contain- Yeah.
They bring them in all kinds, and they bring them in by airplane, because they believe when they get hired in a foreign country, there's whole groups that go to the Philippines and hire 30, 50 women and say,
Yeah.
you're going to work in a hotel, at the counter, you're going to be a hostess in a
Yeah,
restaurant.
that's disgusting. False pretense, build their
Yep.
hopes up, their
So they
dreams.
get on the plane,
Yeah,
go willingly,
willingly,
and they get
willingly.
on. And then when they get where they're going, the guys take their passports away and
Yeah,
start raping. They get raped 30 or 40 times.
unbelievable. Just like you see in these movies, because the script
Yep.
writing is done from solid research. It's
Oh, yeah.
factual.
Yeah,
If
they
you
talk to
decide,
guys
come on,
like
come on,
me.
it's only a movie. This doesn't go on. My
Yeah,
word, it does.
it
So,
does.
you've got to watch the containers, and you've got to watch the ports and
Yep.
all sorts of damn things. If you haven't had time to listen to all of this fascinating interview, by the way, you can go to www.markbishopmedia.com. It's also on the YouTube channel. And speaking of that, I appreciate it when you do subscribe. Helps the channel, helps me to keep going. I'm hoping to get this show going weekly. I've just got to find some more interesting guests, fascinating people. I'm not heavy into politics. There's enough sadness around.
Oh, God, yeah.
I'm trying to motivate people and keep things happy. But your
Yeah.
story is unique. And I've always
And we
been
don't get
fascinated.
involved. We don't get involved in politics because we work for Republicans, Democrats, Independent. You
Right.
don't care who it is when a kid is kidnapped.
Of course
I've
not. Of
never
course.
asked a client, are you a Republican or a Democrat, a
Yeah,
liberal
right.
or a conservative? I couldn't care less. I just want to get their kid back.
And the loser, of course, are the children.
Of course, they use these kids like they're chips, like they're poker chips. I'm going to take my kid and I'm going to run away, or the runaways that get grabbed in human trafficking. Nobody's looking for them. Some kids
You're
are
right.
literally thrown out of their house when they're 15 years old, and they're on the streets. And you get a nice looking 13 or 14-year-old girl in the streets, and somebody's going to grab her. A bad guy is going to grab her. You got to be really aware with your kids, man. And
Well,
when they
I
go to meet someone,
want to ask you this question because we haven't touched on it. Is that going on much today too? Like a van creeps up the street, the child's
absolutely,
walking home from school, all of a sudden
absolutely.
off. That is going on.
Yes. Not
Big,
nearly as much as the runaways. The runaways, the van comes and a guy gets out that's got long hair, and he gets together with a bunch of young girls and says, "Hey, I know where there's a party. They got some marijuana.
this
Come on."
bad.
And the minute they get into that van, their life is over.
They're sucked in, but to run away in the first place,
Yeah. Yep. And nobody's looking for them. Once in a while, there's somebody like me. My partner has a company that is one of the biggest in the United States for runaways. And he has contracts with about 130 schools and places. And when you see these kids that go to a judge and the judge says, look, you're either going to juvenile hall or you're going to go to this program in Idaho, right? And it's a
Right.
lockdown program, but a lot of these places have horses and the kids ride, and I mean, they just
And life.
they have a life. But and then when they run away from that, that camp, the people call my partner's company because we have files on all those kids.
You would on
And
those
we know
years.
where to go looking for them. They run away 2 or 3 at a time. Will run away.
How many runaways a year in America? Any idea? What are the latest statistics?
Oh, God almighty. Tens of thousands and tens of thousands. Run away. Yeah. Well, like I said, 800,000 to 1 million disappear every single year without fail. Sometimes 1.2 million. And 87% of those come home, get found, whatever.
Right.
But if there's 10% of that million, you're talking 100,000 kids a year.
Unbelievable. It's so sad.
And for the human traffickers, it's like cherry picking.
You feel like going around the country doing seminars to parents, do not have children.
I know. Yeah, and I've done them.
If you're not going to last for life.
You can't make a living at it.
Unbelievable. It's a commitment.
It is horrible. It's just
so anybody that folks, okay, who needs the right guy for the right job, what we've been talking about, you never know. Word of mouth is big. You can call Logan direct on this number as you see here, going across the bottom of the screen. It's 951-316-1744. I know, Mark, I can see it. Yeah, you may be able to, but somebody blind may not be able to. Okay? So 951-316-1744. And if you like to have a nightcap maybe and get in your podgies, pajamas, or a cup of joe, you can go online.
I got cases in South America right now, Russia, Mexico, New York, and Estonia.
Yeah, but the team can handle it, right? I mean, we're not telling people to call you.
Yeah, different parts. They're in different phases. I run them all between my assistant Jackie. Yeah, my assistant Jackie and I run all of the teams of what they're doing, where they're going. We help them figure out undercover,
Okay,
operations.
that's good. LinkedIn.com/pub/Logan Clarke. All right. But here's a couple of others. The one that's been on this one, gp-pi.com. Okay. gp-pi.com. And there is another, ihttf.com. But this is enough. Giving you 2. That's plenty. Global Pursuit Investigation.
Shows a lot of photographs.
Whatever. Social media. How could we not forget that? LinkedIn is a big one, by all means. Yeah. And you can even email Logan personally. Don't do it in the morning. He gets grumpy in the morning, all right? Yeah. But Logan at loganclarke.com. Logan at loganclarke.com. Well, you opened my eyes, I got to tell you. It makes me sad. It does make me sad. But at the same token, it makes me very aware,
Yeah. And you got to be aware. Be aware, not paranoid. You just got to be aware, and your kids have to be aware. And your kids' have to be aware. You gotta talk to them. You gotta have conversations with them because it does happen to them. It happens in a small town in the middle of America, middle of nowhere, and somebody will kidnap a kid. They are driving by, they're looking for just a shot at grabbing some kid, and it can be cornfields, and they're walking home. And if they're walking by themselves,
they've got to be so alert. Yeah, you know what they've got to stop doing? They've got to be more aware. Instead of holding the phone to their face,
exactly.
they cross the road. They cross a road. Don't even look. The phone's to the face.
Get
right? They get onto the footpath and they
Yep.
start walking on the footpath. I mean, if I was going to be a baddie and pick these people up, it would be so easy.
Yeah.
You know?
It is. It's horrible.
Talk to them, parents. Talk to them. Warn them. But I don't want to scare them all the time.
But it's not scaring them. Make them aware. And you got to scream. If a kid is grabbed, they got to scream as loud as they can, because that guy and run. Because even if the guy has a gun, he is not going to shoot you. I promise you. He's not going to shoot you if you run. He doesn't want, that's going to attract attention. He doesn't want anyone to see it. He uses the gun and says, shut up. I'll kill you or I'll kill your family. Run and scream.
Right.
And they'll run away. They'll run in the opposite direction.
The other one, Logan, that is a worry is they go out to these raves. School kids get dressed up. Some of them, you know, I mean, stunning. They're 14. They look 21, you know. But the reality is,
happens all
the
time.
They get invited to these things. They meet these guys, as you said. You know, hey, you know, because they're all wanting to try. They're all wanting to experience.
Of course.
You know.
Yeah.
I didn't have my first J till I was 32. Nothing else has ever interested me, I'll tell you. TV and movies have turned me off all that rubbish. Here's, you know, seriously, but here's the deal. The kids, it's easy to lure them in. They must be.
Yeah, always. And they've always got some angle. I lost my dog. They got a picture of a puppy. You know, I mean, and kids fall for it all the time.
Right.
And they just have to be aware.
You're aware,
you know, if you have a young kid, get air tags and put them in their backpack. You know, put an air tag in their backpack, a GPS. You know where they are. And, you know, you're doing it for their own safety. But
they might know that, though. You know what I mean?
Oh, I know. And a lot of times you don't let them know. You act when they're asleep, you sew it into their backpack so that they can't even see it.
Okay.
It's in there. And it's sewn in.
That's the thing on the phone, you know, where they are. It's the locator.
Yeah.
All right, mate. Listen, it's been fantastic. I wish you well with the movie coming out. Keep up the good work. It's a fabulous thing that you do. I mean, it's your chosen career. And yes, you get paid for it, but you also risk your darn life for it every time. But you really care about these poor kidnappings, these poor kids, these parental issues and all of that. So you're doing a great job. Keep it up. And if anybody needs you, bingo, it's on here. But if you miss it and someone's told you, well, just go to markbishopmedia.com, go to the third tab and scroll down, and you're going to see the show. And it'll be right there with his bio and a write-up and all sorts of stuff, and the video from the movie I was telling you about before. And go to YouTube as well, okay? You'll find it on there and on Facebook, LinkedIn, all over the place. So, you know, you can get to see it again.
And I have a lot of videos on YouTube. Yep. Hey, thank you very much. We got to get the word out. Send me a link to this show because I want to send it. I want to send it to all my friends.
I will indeed. Thank you so much, and it all helps.
Thank you.
Logan Clarke, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you enjoyed the show. We'll see you again soon.
God bless, buddy.